voice, 17104.com.
Welcome to Nathaniel Gadsden's Griot Collective. I am Winde Nnochirionye, and I am sitting in for Nathaniel Gadsden, Reverend Dr. Nathaniel Gadsden, today. And you know, that intro always gets me going. I think I could dance through the whole show, and then even afterwards, I'm still thinking about it. So, you know, think about that. Clap your hands if you're happy. You know, I am extremely happy. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be here, excited to share with you. Super excited and extremely honored that Nate Gadsden would allow me to stand in his shoes for only a moment to run the show for him tonight. So I want to thank him for that opportunity, and of course continue to send prayers their way, and for all the things that he does in the community and for each of us, including myself and my family. So again, I am Winde Nnochirionye, and welcome to the Griot Collective. And I wanted to just share briefly before we even start anything, the Griot Collective. And I don't know if everyone knows what a griot is, so I wanted to just talk about what is a griot. Griot, it's a noun. It's a member of a class of traveling poets, musicians, and storytellers who maintain a tradition of oral history in parts of West Africa. We have several griots, famous griots throughout our time that have told stories from some of the greats like Alex Haley. Then we have poets, Nikki Giovanni, Ntozake Shange, just so many that told stories. And if you go a little bit deeper into the griot, it says, what is a modern day griot? Griots are musicians, oral historians, praise singers, genealogists, and storytellers found in West Africa. Today's musicians, poets, writers, artists, and actors who tell the stories of our Blackness with our flavor, our modern day griots. And I consider myself to be a griot. I remember hearing a story years ago. I think I was a young person, because I'm still a young person, but I think I was a younger person. And I remember hearing someone talk about griots, and they talked about how they told a story, and how even as young people and the slaves and the elders of the community would tell the stories to the younger people, because that was where, and that was the way that the history would be remembered. And they would repeat the story over and over again so that they would tell it. And then that person got older and would tell the story so that the stories continue. For those of you, if any of you remember the movie Book of Negroes, and the name of the book is actually Someone Knows My Name, but there was a little girl that was on the ship, and they started telling her, remember my name. And so they started saying names, and she remembered. And so they would say it, say my name. And then she would say their name, and they were going, and, at the bottom of the ship where the slaves were, and, they were sickly, some were dying. And so they didn't know if they would make that passage. And so they would say my name, and she would repeat their name and remember, and she could remember the names, and then she would say them. And I don't want to be, a spoiler. So if you have not seen Book of Negroes, or if you've not read Someone Knows My Name, it's a must-see and a must-read. I prefer the book over the movie, but the movie, excellent. I think Essence put it on, and it came on BET several years ago, but it does come back on, and I think you can get it on Prime and some of the other streaming. But if you have an opportunity, to see that, definitely a must read and then a must see. But she remembered their names. And so as griots, that's kind of what we do. We tell the story of our history. We tell the story of our families, and we continue to tell it. And then we should tell it to our young people so that they will remember. And that was how our history was carried on. Because I was going to say if you remember, but you probably don't remember. As Taft would say, he wasn't there that day. But a lot of our history was not allowed to be written, and they didn't think that we could read or write. They didn't think that we had other language skills or that we were multilingual, but we were able to tell our story, and our stories were captured not only in the oral story, but in our quilts, in our hair, in so many different ways. We were still able to tell the story in our songs and in our singing. So that is what a griot is. It's a storyteller, a poet, a musician, an artist, and modern day griots are telling it with the modern day flavor. And this is Nathaniel Gadsden's Griot Collective. So just wanted to share that if you didn't know. So I was going to be on with Nate today, and we were going to talk about a couple of trips in a program that I'm involved in and that I've had an honor to be involved in. And we've been able to travel, and we've done quite a few things over the past year and a half. It's a 3-year program, and we are going to continue, and we'll continue traveling and seeing things and studying and things of that nature. Earlier this year, I had an opportunity to travel and go on a civil rights bus tour, and it was through the Thriving. It's called Thriving Together. Thriving Together Congregations for Racial Justice, and it's through Messiah University. And what they did is they have a grant, and they chose 12 churches. I believe that we're 12 churches. And with these churches, what they did was the 12 churches brought 3 people each. So it would be, one had to be the pastor, and the other one had to be, the other 2 had to be lay persons. So I am a member of Wesley Union AME Zion Church in Harrisburg on the corner of 5th and Camp Street, church that's making an impact in the community, where our pastor is the Reverend Dr. David T. Miller. And myself, another sister in the church, Linda, and our pastor, we are participating. And so we take turns reading books. We've read several books, and then we come together with the group. So what I love about, I'll start there. What I love about the group is, one, it is thriving. We're thriving together. It's a multifaceted, multi-year, it says a multi-year initiative designed to strengthen Christian congregations so they can help deepen their relationship with God, build strong relationships with each other, and contribute to the flourishing of local communities in the world. So what does the group look like? So we're of all ages, all races, various Christian backgrounds. I believe one is, you have AME Zion, you have AME, so it'll be your African Methodist Episcopal Zion, your African Methodist Episcopal, Church of the Brethren. There is an Episcopal church. There is, of course, a Baptist church. There is, I believe that there's something else. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but there, like every church, you name it, there's just a group of churches that come together, and we genuinely enjoy each other. We have had an opportunity to, travel together, to read books together. Once we read the book, we come together and we fellowship, and we discuss the book that we read. And one of my first experiences, we read The Black Church, I believe it's called The Black Church by Henry Louis Gates. And it was really interesting. But one of the things, and they break us up into groups so that you're not always sitting with just your church members. So, initially we're having this conversation, and we were honest and open about what we thought of the book. And it was just interesting to me because one of the things that came out of the group that I was in is that culturally, we don't just go to church, we do church. And I believe all of us believe that we are the church, but it's not just just go, sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up, say hello and leave. It's a part of who we are, and everything, and especially in the African American community, everything started for us in the church. That was where the civil rights movement started. That was where we went to for information, and we still at times go to. Politicians that want to reach out to the African American communities, they don't just hold town hall meetings, they go to the churches because that's where typically we get the information. Also a part of the group are the students that they're fellows, so they're in their grad students, and they are fellows, and so it's just amazing. It really is amazing to have a group like this come together. And so we've had a chance to spend some time together. And one of the most recent things that we did was we were able to go to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And I wanted to share, and I know that we've got a video, but I just wanted to share with you all the National Museum of African American History and Culture and History. So Minister Chris, I know we have a video, so I want to share a video with you, and then I want to share my personal experience. And while Minister Chris is pulling that up, I want to say hello to Chris Camouflage Williams. Chris Camouflage Williams, I know Taft is not here to salute you with me, but thank you, and I appreciate that you always come through. You always come on for us, so thank you for stopping through and hollering at your girl. Minister Chris, we're ready.
Is the month of Black History, and I thought, what better way to explore Black history than visiting one of the most popular museums in all of Washington, D.C. Hi, I'm Jose, and I welcome you to explore the accomplishments, the civil rights movement, and history of slavery as we take a tour of the National Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C. Behind the tale of the great American development comes a story of another group of people who've been at the forefront of America's birth, the African American community. A community who's been at all the breakthroughs, wars, and construction of an independent nation. The African American History and Culture Museum take us through the experience that African Americans have had to endure since the country's birth.
Our museum tour starts with a breathtaking view of the museum's design. The museum began construction in 2012 and completed in 2016 with an opening ceremony by President Barack Obama. We start with some of the most notable work in Black history, and that's art. The colors and expressions bring to life the voice of the community, built around metaphors of African American struggles. This portrait of Harriet Tubman, embroidered in cotton, silk, and velvet, is an exhibition of protest, defiance, and resilience. And if we speak about Black history, theater is one of the greatest achievements. From stage to film, African Americans have birthed icons to the American narrative. And through theater, the community has addressed the suffrage of a people. On display, we see historic garments from the monumental showcase for colored girls only, an emotional ride of identity and suicide in a sexist and oppressed society. In the heart of African American entertainment is reality, where the range from comedy to memoirs of slavery and struggling neighborhoods tell the story of being Black in America.
the architecture of this museum is a little bit different than the other museums. It gives it that individuality, and it makes it stand out in the National Mall.
The dark history of America and the story of segregation and slavery. We can travel through time and feel the division in this country. This train is a perfect model of the segregation that existed, where the line was drawn for a section to allow white and black. At the back of the bus, or the back of the train, was a case for colored. No mixing of a people in a school, or even sharing water fountains. This led to a different America and created a fragmented society, which still feels the effects of that division. But segregation and slavery didn't begin in America. It's been a part of world history across all nations. All continents have seen slavery, from tribe to tribe, or foreigners from other lands. To understand America's role, we have to look at the beginning, the transatlantic slave trade. Modern slavery can be traced to labor shortage. When industrialization grew across the world, West African tribes created a business of trade. And as Europeans expanded and explored the world, the partnership eroded, leading to mass slavery. When it comes to America, industrialization created an inferiority complex, and it's displayed here with the groundwork of the Klan and books painting African Americans as second-class citizens. The troublesome foundation, where the Declaration stated all men are created equal, but slavery remained rampant within the ranks of the forefathers. It wasn't until the culmination of the country's division between the Union and the Confederates that slavery was abolished. The period that came after was another challenge to African Americans, where many went back to slave masters in search of work. Things like segregation and blackface plagued the development of the community.
If you're enjoying this video, take that time to hit subscribe and give it a like. Now back to the tour.
The story of fighting, the fight against injustice and for equality. The civil rights movement was led by notable figures like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and icons like Rosa Parks. It pressured President Lyndon B. Johnson to sign into law the Civil Rights Act. But the injustice didn't end, leading to other forms of sending a message. Subtle protests, like the 1968 Mexico Olympics and the Black Power salute. Olympians Tommie Smith and John Carlos raised a black glove fist during the national anthem, which was a salute to human rights. Sports has been a defining platform to get the message across. From world champions like Venus and Serena Williams to boxing legend Muhammad Ali, sports is dominated by African American athletes who've become role models across the world. This museum is filled with typography, notating the words of freedom and hope. The walls echo the anguish and pain that African Americans have witnessed throughout their American story. And if we dive into history, African Americans have been silent in the shadows, from world wars and the Harlem Hellfighters to the inclusion of African American women in the military. They've always played a major role in protecting America. And this wing circles around tradition, leaders, and voices. The legendary hip-hop group Public Enemy rapped about the conditions of the community, and Huey P. Newton co-founded the Black Panther Party to help create community support programs. The civil rights movement opened the eyes to the world of the struggles African Americans faced, and it kickstarted a change in American history where a community could eventually make it to the White House. Quoting the first African American president, Barack Obama, "A change is brought about because ordinary people do extraordinary things."
The African American community has endured so many challenges, but continues to make groundbreaking accomplishments, shattering the stereotypes of inequality. This museum is a perfect collage to contain the stories and history of the community. I'm Jose, and if you've enjoyed this video, hit subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and share. If you want to explore more of Washington, D.C., click on the following video links. Until next time.
Awesome, 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 awesome. That is just sort of like the museum. It's a lot to take in at once, and I wanted to share some of the things that I found interesting and some of my experience at the museum. I wanted to share some facts with you also, and I think he mentioned some of them, but I think it's worth, if it's repetitious, I think it's worth repeating. So the idea, and they're saying, they say that this museum is a century in the making. They said that the National African American Museum idea dates back to 1929, when President Herbert Hoover appointed a building commission, which Congress ultimately failed to authorize. In 2003, President George W. Bush signed legislation for the museum to be built, and the groundbreaking on the 5-acre site took place in February of 2012. The current site was selected in 2006, and the museum opened September 24, 2016 in a ceremony led by President Barack Obama. The museum is the 19th among the museums of the Smithsonian Institution. It's also the newest on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. The total cost of construction and exhibition installations was $540 million. This total was funded by both the Smithsonian and federal funds. The admission for the museum is free. So one of the things that we experienced, so you do get a pass. You go online and you pick a time. I believe you have to do it within 30 days. So you cannot, unless you're a large group, but you cannot go online and register or get a pass to go or prior more than 30 days in advance. And so it is free. The line started, we got there at 10, where our time to go in was at 10. One of the things they said, if you are for 10:30, you should not be in line yet. So they don't want you to line up early either. But because we were a large group in a bus, we went in through a separate entrance, but the line started lining up about 9:30, 9:45. And then when we got in, of course, we were the first ones in, and there wasn't really a line, but as we spent time there, there were lines, but things moved smoothly. There was never a time of just standing for like a ridiculous amount of time. So it was, admission is free, but you do have to go online and register. The theater is named after Oprah Winfrey. The museum's collection was built from scratch and originally opened with 12 exhibits, and it has about 85,000 square feet of exhibition space with 12 exhibitions, 13 different interactives with 17 stations and 183 videos housed on 5 floors. One of the things that we were told when we first went in, and you can get, you can get a map of the museum when you first go in. But you go to the concourse, well, you go in on the main floor and you go to the concourse, which is down below. And it starts from 1400. The bottom one, which is concourse 3, starts at 1400, and then it goes all the way up to 1968. So each floor has a different era, a different time period, a different time frame. So that's the concourse. And then on the concourse is also the cafe. Oh my goodness, G Money Christmas. The cafe was amazing. It's called Sweet Home Cafe. I had Minister Chris, I don't know, maybe we can, as I'm talking, we can show some of the pictures. But I had oxtails and collard greens and macaroni and cheese, and it was just amazing. It was cold outside, not too bad. Washington, D.C. in February, so, but it wasn't too bad. But we, didn't have long to wait. So I think that one is with the next set of pictures. So I think they go backwards. Yes. So it is right across the street from the monument, which they wanted it to be right next to the first president's monument. And so there is the paneling on the building is called the Corona. And there are places in it that it looks like maybe pieces of it are missing. That is intentional so that you can see different sites of the mall, as they call that, the mall there where the Capitol is, so that you can see different sites of it. So it is amazing to see. The top floors, or as you're going up, it is the culture galleries, the community galleries, the Heritage Hall, and Explore More. And so it was just amazing. My mouth is watering because those oxtails were extremely good. And I think unfortunately, I took a picture of Bones as well, because that was amazing. Yes. So, I just wanted to let everybody know that I did them proud. So that's where the panels are, or it appears that the panels are out, are missing, but the panels are there to allow you to see different things within the mall there, of where it is. So it is nothing shy of amazing. And of course, it did start to snow a little bit while we were there, which is always beautiful. But it's an amazing building. You go in and it takes you through every emotion. It piques your mind. It makes you think. It makes you proud. I was extremely proud, even after the things that made me angry and made me remember a time. I was still proud of my heritage and my culture, and so it was just a beautiful opportunity. We left Friday and we had an opportunity to go. We stayed at Gallaudet University in DC at their conference center, and we had a speaker, Reverend Michael McBride and that's Reverend Michael McBride from California. He's a Pentecostal pastor in California, and he has a organization called Live Again, and they deal with gun violence, police brutality, and things of that nature. And so he spoke to us. He kind of gave us, he talked to us about the different things that are going on in our country and society. And then the next morning, he spoke to us again. So we had dinner, and then he spoke to us before we went to the museum, and he kind of gave us a charge of how to carry forward with what it is that we've set out to do. So if you go to his website or to look him up, it's Live Again, and it's out of California. Excellent speaker. He just really kind of got us fired up. And so it was really, really good. And it was just sort of the cake topper on the experience. One of the things that I enjoyed, another thing, just a simple thing, it doesn't take much for me, but at the museum, they have these little cards. If you go into the shop, they have these little cards, and each of the cards have information on each of the different exhibits that they have. And so you can go through and see what, and you can read, and you have it, and they're free. They're free because, as you see, I got one of each card I went through. I went through and got one of each. And then it does have the different artists that are there and different things about them. So it's just really interesting. And one of the things, they have an exhibit there about the Harlem Hellfighters. So we always hear about the Tuskegee Airmen, my school, Tuskegee. But the Harlem Hellfighters was a nickname given to the 369th Infantry Regiment, formerly the 15th New York National Guard Regiment. The regiment saw action in World Wars I and II and spent more time on the front lines than any other U.S. unit during World War I. Because the 369th amassed such a stellar record in the battles along the Aze River and Belleau Woods, it received the Croix de Guerre, the highest military honor in France. And so that's just one of the cards and one of the information that I would like to read and share from time to time, and to find a way to keep it, to keep it and be able to share it later. Again, on the bus tour, we were able to come back and, we ate together. We went down to the Sweet Home Cafe. And so we ate with the group, not all together as a group, but whoever you saw that was a part of your group. And again, we were able to have awesome conversations. I believe, I know her name is Alyssa Boyer, but I believe it's Reverend, or she's an ordained minister. She just had her ordination since we did the civil rights tour. But we just sat there and had a wonderful lunch, and that we were all full, but just talking about what we saw, what we thought, and what our experience was. And so I would encourage anyone and everyone, if you have an opportunity to go to the museum. For one, it's a free museum. For those of us that are here in Harrisburg, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours tops drive, but it is worth it. The only thing I would do different with this trip would be to have more time. We did not stay all day, but what I did was I tried to divide my time up between each floor to make sure that I went to each floor and saw everything. So I didn't really have time to stop and stand and look at and spend as much time as I would have liked to on each exhibit. But I feel like I laid eyes on everything. But I will definitely go back. And I am excited to go back, because you feel it. You know how they say when, if you've ever gone to Africa, or you hear people who've gone to the continent and they say they had a motherland experience. Well, this is not quite the motherland experience, but it is an experience when you go and when you begin to see, even if it's not your culture, from my understanding and what other individuals on the tour shared with us, is that they felt the power of it as well. And so it's an amazing opportunity. The next thing that I wanted to share, also still with the Thriving Together, the Thriving Communities, is we went on a civil rights tour in July, and it was again amazing. So everything we do with this group is amazing. We had the opportunity. I believe we went to 5 states, 4 states, 6 cities in 5 days. We started at Greensboro, North Carolina, at the original lunch counter sit-in. Now, if my mom is on here, she's going to tell you something a little different, because there were sit-ins that happened in Rock Hill, South Carolina prior to this. However, this was the sit-in that got the, I don't want to say got the most attention, but this was the historical sit-in of these, the 4 young men at the Woolworth. So we went to the Woolworth, and the counter, it's now a museum, and it's where they were originally, the counter is still there. It looks exactly the way it did when they were there. They have the benches. A portion of the counter was cut out and is at the museum in Washington, D.C. But it is just amazing. And Minister Chris, I don't think that the pictures are in order. So I will just kind of jump around with you, or I'll just keep talking and we'll just kind of show some of the pictures. So we started off in Greensboro, North Carolina. Then we stayed the night in Greenville, South Carolina. And then the next morning we got up and went to Atlanta, Georgia. And we went to the King Monument, where Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King are laid to rest. We were able to go there. We went to the home that he lived in, and we were able to go through. We went out to eat. One of the things that you do on this bus trip is you eat. We ate. It was, every couple of hours we stopped and we ate, and we ate and we ate. And so we were able to spend time, and we were walking through. Of course, it was July, so it was warm. It was really warm, but we were able to go through and see the monument and spend time in reflection. And one of the things that we did on the way to different places and while we were on the bus, there were videos and documentaries that we watched that had something to do with the next place that we were going, or that were a part of the civil rights movement, or a part of the civil rights tour. So we were able to kind of get an idea of what we were going to see. And they were not the documentaries that we just see casually on TV. They were specific for, I think, not specific for this tour, but they were a little bit more geared towards this tour. We left Atlanta and went to Montgomery. And Minister Chris, is it possible to show the video? Can we show that video? We went to the Rosa Parks Museum. And I was able to capture a video of something that I thought was really, it was one of the things that stood out to me. I mean, there were so many other things that I will share that stood out, but this was something that I was able to capture, and it's one of the artists that did a depiction of Rosa Parks. This is a portrait of Rosa Parks. So that was, we were in front of the Rosa Parks Museum, and everywhere we went, there were tidbits and things, of history that, the stories, you've heard it, we've studied it, but this time we had an opportunity to see and experience it in a different way. And so that was kind of at the time that we were at that museum, just watching it and just, standing outside and looking at it. And it was meant to show the bars as when she was arrested and how it turned into a portrait of her. Every place we went, there were tidbits like that. We were able to go to Martin Luther King's church. We were able to go to where the actual bus was, and just different things. And then there were things that I don't know if it was something that I knew or I'd heard, or if this was my first time hearing it. But they talked about how they were able to get during the bus boycott, the Montgomery bus boycott. They talked about how they were able to get the information out and how they took pieces of paper and they wrote on, they did it and made copies and would hand stacks and stacks of it to people to get it out, and how people were helping drive the maids and the domestics to where they needed to go. And just seeing that and watching that, and then thinking, and looking at how it was, how things were, it literally took you back in time. It took you back there. So it wasn't the same as sitting and reading a book. It wasn't quite the same as sitting and reading a book and then hearing about it. It was literally experiencing it. From Montgomery, and I want to make sure that we're good on time. From Montgomery, we went to Selma. Well, I'll go to this. This was at the National African American Music Museum in Nashville, Tennessee. So what you guys probably did not know is that, yes, I was on the choir with Bobby Jones. Can't sing a lick. So actually what this is at the museum, the National African American Music Museum. It's very interactive. They give you a bracelet, and you just basically, you go and you scan the bracelet. So if you're listening to music and you like the music, you scan your bracelet and it downloads it, and then you get an email with all of these songs. So here we went and they showed a video of Bobby Jones from BET's Sunday Morning, I think it is, and the choir singing. And you stand in this particular place and you sing. And then he says, "Great, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you." And then you watch the video, and next thing you know, you're actually in the video with them as if you were singing. Now, had I have known that, I would have put on the choir robe, because they had choir robes there. But everything in this museum was interactive. You could go in and rap with Run DMC. You could sing, you could dance, you learned different dances. And it was just beautiful. It was music from sort of like what was at the African American History and Culture Museum. It just went from pre-slavery to where we are now. Everybody in between, and the different movements and things like that in music. It was just an experience to behold. If you're in Nashville, you want to spend a day there, but if you can't, go anyway. The National African American Music Museum. And I'm sure at any point, some record company should be calling me to ask me to sing with one of their groups. So Kirk Franklin, if you're looking for somebody, let me know. This was in Birmingham at the church right across the street. So the building in the background is the church that was bombed, 14th Street Baptist Church, that was bombed with the little girls. And Lisa McNair, her sister wrote a book, Denise McNair, and she actually, we actually had a chance to sit down and to talk to her. I don't think that I have a picture here that shows it, but there's a portion of the church where the actual bombing, where the bombing was. There's a picture from back then that there were men standing outside, and they're kind of looking into this big crater of a hole that the bomb created. So you could see the streets. They said that the bomb was so strong that it blew the windows out across the street. So what you probably wouldn't be able to know is that this was a wide street, and they said they did not widen, they didn't change it, change the street. The building is no longer there, but the bomb was forceful enough that it blew the windows out. So you see the picture of these men standing there. When you realize that that's how big the hole, that's how big the hole was. It's a 16th Street, I'm sorry, it's 16th Street church. But the bricks around the hole, the original bricks that they were able to keep, they're still charred. So from all of this time, I believe it was 1953 till now, not weather, not wind, not sun, not rain, nothing took the char off of those bricks. It was that forceful that those bricks are permanently charred, and you can see the where it's charred, where they replaced the bricks from that hole. And when I say it's huge, it is huge. It is just being there at the church, seeing it, experiencing it. Once again, is just something that you can't read about it and understand it or see it then. It just was something that was amazing. So that was in Birmingham. Before we went to Birmingham, we were in Montgomery, but we also had a chance to go to Selma, and we crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We spoke with, we met with Linda Blackman Lowry. That's Linda Blackman Lowry, turning 15 on the road to freedom. She was the youngest, or she is the youngest person to have crossed the bridge. And they took us to where they started, and they were doing training. It was her and her sister, and they were doing training of nonviolence. And they were learning because they had decided that they were going to do something, and they called it Bloody Tuesday, I believe it was. And there was a housing development, or projects, if you want to call it that, that's right there, sort of the foot of the bridge, couple blocks over and a block in. And that's where they lived. And so they showed us, the lady that was giving us a tour of Selma, she showed us where they lived. And she showed us like the exact apartment. And she said that day that they tried to cross the bridge and then they beat them, that it was all young people. They ran back, but they knew they wouldn't be able to get into their homes. So they ran past their homes, down the street to the next corner, to the church. And they went inside the church. And she said that they were dragging them out and they beat them all night long. So we had an opportunity to walk hand in hand and to cross the bridge. Again, not something that you will get if you read about it. You just really have to go and do it. First of all, I thought it was going to be this big long bridge, like, I don't know, the Brooklyn Bridge, or or the Golden Gate or something. It's a short bridge. I really was expecting to have to really, I was preparing myself, getting my stretches and everything to walk across this long bridge. It was not. It's not a long bridge, but it does have a spiritual significance, and you can tell. I do want to say really quick hello to my mom, Randy Massey, in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Mom, thank you for joining. And if you're out there, please let us know that you're on here so that we can say hello to us. Let us know where you are, so that we can greet you appropriately. It was just each thing that we did, we stopped, we talked about it, we debriefed, we shared our feelings, and I stopped and I wrote. When we got back on the bus, we were sitting by ourselves, and I had a chance to just write and to reflect on what I experienced, what I saw, and what I felt, so that I could come back and share. These pictures we were in, when we were in Birmingham. So there's the Equal Justice Initiative, and each of these little blocks here, what they have is the names and the counties and the dates of people that were lynched, of African and African Americans, people of color that were lynched. And you can walk through, they have them hanging, they have pillars hanging from the ceiling. And as you're walking through each one, you're going up and then down a row, over, up and down a row, back and forth. And you're seeing, and you see, your own state. You see dates that, not from Pennsylvania, but you see dates that aren't really so long ago. You see the ages of the people that were very young, or some very seasoned, You saw, you see men and women. And in some cases it will tell you for what, and there was in another museum, there was a wall of jars, and it was dirt taken from the very site where each of the individuals were lynched or were hung. And so what was interesting, one, of course, is that one might think that it would be all red dirt, that it was all from the South, and it was not. It was not. It was from as far north as New York, far west, and the Midwest, and down, of course, all the way down to the South. And so we walked through somberly, but still able to, to see and to reflect and to get the feeling, of what the experience was. The Equal Justice Initiative, EJI Center, and it was, if you've seen the movie Just Mercy, I believe it's Michael B. I think it's the same guy that played Creed. Sorry, I don't remember actors' names very well, but anyway, it's about a man that was in prison, and the Equal Justice Initiative fought to get him freed, and he was saying, why would you fight for me? And they were like, because we believe that you were innocent. And so they still continue till this day to work on those that are wrongly and falsely imprisoned. Over this 5 days, we were in Greensboro, North Carolina, Atlanta, Georgia, Montgomery, Alabama, Selma, Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, and Nashville, Tennessee. And then we returned to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It was nothing shy of amazing. And this is, of course, where you can see those individuals that were lynched. And each of these, they look sort of like caskets, I guess, lined up. And then each of these, if you go back to that picture just before, Minister Chris.
This one or this way?
No, the other way, I think. One more. Yes. So each of those things hanging down. Nope, you were right. Keep going the other way. It's with the things behind me. Other way. Yeah, one more. Right there. So each of these are also names that are on there. And so you look up and you can read the names, and they're hanging down. And there's one for, in some areas, there's one for each person. So you imagine, and there's, some have 2 and 3 people on the same date or same situation or same time. But if you imagine just looking up and walking through all of this space, acres and reading names and looking at names and hopefully remembering names. But it's an opportunity of a lifetime. It says for the go back one if you can, but it's okay. But it does say for the hanged and beaten, and it's set up to remind us of what we went, through. I am a book lover. I collect books. So I got, while we were on the trip, I got Turning 15 on the Road to Freedom. It's a children's book, but it is absolutely a wonderful book. Turning 15 on the Road to Freedom, it's my story of the 1965 Selma voting rights march. One of the things that I always share, and I try to remember. So during this time, after the children, because they were young people, after they were chased across the bridge and all of this stuff was going on, they said, somebody, we need to get Martin. And they were having problems in Birmingham, and that's where the kids in Selma were trying to walk and march to Birmingham, but they had to cross that bridge. So Martin Luther King Jr., he came to the church And he was talking, and they have a video of it. He was talking to the adults, but some people had their children there with them. And he said, you know, we know what we need to do. And there are people, you're going to end up in jail. We need people who are willing to go to jail. You know, who will go? Nobody stood up because they knew they would lose their jobs. They could lose their homes. They could lose their families. No one stood up. The young people started standing up. So it was the young people, it was their movement. And this was when they began. So they were, and there were pictures, and there were, we watched a documentary that there were children, babies, like 4 or 5 years old, because the older sibling decided, I'm going, and they had to babysit their younger sibling. So they brought the younger sibling with them. And so what they did was, this day they decided that they were going to march, that no matter what, they were going. And so they were going to Birmingham, and they said in Birmingham, they would let, I forgot the number, but they would let hundreds of kids out at a time. They were coming through the back door. So you know how on TV, that old thing where they show all these people getting out the car, but you don't see that there's more coming in, and did they just keep getting out? So it's kind of like that. So this is where you see the picture of where in Birmingham, they turned the dogs and the hoses on people. What we don't know and see is that these were the young people. These were the young people, and they were putting them in jail, and they packed. So they said something like the first day, there were like 5,000. They arrested like 5,000 children, you know, young people, children, and there were adults too, of course. And then the next day there were like 10,000, and they kept coming. And some of them would get out, and their parents would say, look, don't go back down there. And they'd get to school, and they'd see their friends. What you gonna do there? I guess I'm going back to jail. And they just kept coming. Their resolve was that strong, that they were like, I'm going back. So even the teachers and the school knew. So the students that couldn't would make sure that they got the homework and the work to the students, so that they didn't get in trouble with school or fail in school. And just being there, just seeing it. And so it was then that Kennedy called and said, hey, we've got to do something. These are kids. You know, these are kids. And that was when they began to get the help, and they sought a resolution. Another book that we got was Buses Are A-Coming, Memoir of a Freedom Rider, Charles Person with Richard Rooker. And this, I did have a chance to read this as well. And just amazing to hear the story. Charles Persons was the youngest of the original Freedom Riders. And he left DC by bus in 61 and headed for New Orleans. And so it is really good. Buses Are Coming. And then how I found Sun, Life, Freedom, and Justice. So it's, how I found life, freedom, and justice. The sun does shine. And this is also a powerful, revealing story of hope, love, justice, and the powers of reading, by a man who spent 30 years on death row for a crime he didn't commit. This is a newer story. And then, because like I said, I enjoy books. When I went to the museum in DC, I got the Gullah folk tales from the Georgia coast, and it is written in Gullah, which some people have called broken English, some people have called Ebonics, but it is a language which reminds us that we are bilingual, and that's a whole nother story. It was amazing. I know that there is another bus tour coming up. It's not through the Thriving Communities, but it is through, with another church, and we'll put that information if you have it readily available. That Minister Chris is always on it. So Building Bridges Civil Rights Tour, very similar to it's 8 days, 7 nights, very similar to the tour that we went on, given by or sponsored by some of the same individuals. This one is Cornerstone Baptist Church in York and First Presbyterian Church also in York. And so there's contact information there. It's from July 22nd to the 29th. If you have an opportunity to take a trip like that, I encourage it. But in your travels, in your planning travel, what will we do this summer? Where will we go? Pick one of these places and go see it. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you, you will not be disappointed. My life has changed, and I'm so grateful to Nathaniel Gadsden for giving me an opportunity to share this, because my life was changed by the trip, and I'm grateful to my pastor, Reverend Dr. David T. Miller, for allowing me to represent Wesley Union AME Zion Church on this as well. So listen, that is my time. I want to first say thank you to Reverend Dr. Nathaniel Gadsden, the Griot Collective, for allowing me to be here. Thank you very much. Thank you to Minister Chris Thomas of the Voice 17104. I say this every time, but if you have an idea for a show, you have an idea for a podcast, or there's something you're passionate about, reach out to Minister Chris Thomas at the Voice 17104. He also has the Voice TV, and make sure you let him know, and let him know you heard about it on the Griot Collective. I will be back on Monday on Let's Talk About It from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., where my son is taking a break. He's in school right now. We've got Jason Benefield, who is joining as a guest co-host and doing a fine, fabulous job. Tomorrow, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., Nathaniel Gadsden's Writer's Workshop. We have poetry, we have song, we have storytelling. So come back and check us out tomorrow night, Fridays, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. for the Writer's Workshop. Just a quick note, the Writer's Workshop has been in existence. I think now this is 46 or 47 years that Nate Gadsden has kept it going, and many, many poets have come through. So if you're a writer, you're interested, or you just want to hear it, stop in and check us out then. Meanwhile, in the meantime and in between time, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Remember that your story is important to everyone, and continue telling your story. Maybe you're the griot of your family and you just don't know it yet. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We've had Rock Hill, South Carolina, Buffalo, New York, and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and a few points in between. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again very soon.